Welcome back. You may have noticed Don Scott there just turning his head because he was talking to one of his old mates, Gary Ayres, who's joined us in the studio this morning, one of the stars of Hawthorn's victory yesterday. Congratulations, Gary. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks very much, Bruce.
Gee, it was a game that you obviously have built yourself up for, you personally on Peter Dacos and the club, because you really tore the heart out of Collingwood yesterday.
Oh, we really had to yesterday, Bruce, because Collingwood's been on top most of this year, and they are a very, very good side. And if we didn't have a good showing against them yesterday, it mightn't have augured too well for the last couple of weeks.
Scotty Palmer mentioned that whether or not Peter Dacos was injured because of his rather poor form in the last couple of weeks, did he feel pretty free to you standing alongside of him yesterday?
Oh, yes, he looked all right to me. I think it makes it a bit harder when the ball has not been delivered as freely as it has been, and you've got to give the guys up the field a lot of credit for that. Gary,
do you get sick and tired of scribes saying that the Hawthorn side are too old and too slow? You've been copying it for 3 years. Yes. Or is that a spur to the whole team?
Oh, I think it's a spur, Peter, because they've got to write their little stories in the paper, and they're quite welcome to do that. But as long as we can keep using that as a spur, it's good for the club, and if we can keep turning it around, I think it's pretty good.
Gary, your forward line set up, how long has that been in effect? Having Morrissey wide on the fence, also Hudson and Deere yesterday, wide on the boundary line, you keep the centre line, well, that centre corridor open. How long has that been around?
Well, it's really only when we play at Waverley there, Don, because the ground's so big. But Jeansy likes to have that space so Jason can lead into, and of course when we got the ball from probably half back and further up the ground, we had a space where Jason could lead into it. It makes it a lot easier if the skill level is there to kick it to Jason. He's so strong overhead.
Gary, the return of Chris Mew, what has it meant to the side of the back line, or to you personally doing back there?
Oh, it's a big help because Chris was too young to probably retire, but then he had obviously good reasons to do that. But at 29, he gives us that bit of experience and also that bit of stability. And before Chris came back, we'd had quite a number of players that were trying to hold down centre-half back, but Chris is just a great player.
Now, Conan, tell us about the Rat. How far is he from his best, or is he at his back to his best now?
Oh no, I think Johnny can improve a lot. He's been troubled by a knee injury this year, Ron, and I thought yesterday's game was probably nearly his best for the year.
Gary, you picked up Peter Dacos, we talked about that earlier. Do you think he moves around enough now, or do you think he's starting to use his body too much?
Yeah, I think he probably relies a little bit on that, Don. I don't think he leads enough, but then again, you've got to be able to have someone further up the field with possession of the ball to enable you to do that. But Dakes is a great player. He's kicked a lot of goals this year, and it was just my job to try and limit his effectiveness around the goal.
Gary, the big surprise packet, I think you'd have to agree, is Stephen Lawrence taking over from Greg Deere. That's well, we've all been shocked by that. Greg Deere's still in the reserves.
Yes, well, the club always thought Stevie had a lot of ability. It's just a matter of him probably maturing a little bit. But unfortunately, then the downturn to that is that Greg Deere's playing in the seconds. But it gives Steve a lot of responsibility when he's the number one ruckman, and he's really carried the load pretty well over the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Gary, what does the fifth position mean? Is it very difficult? Would you find to win it from there?
I think it can be done.
What's the feeling in the club about it?
Well, we're not looking too far ahead. We've only got Carlton next week, and they beat Essendon, and obviously it's going to be a big game for us. But I think it can be done, and we've probably got a fairly experienced side. But the only unfortunate thing is it's a process of elimination. Every game is a final, and you can't afford to slip up. But we're just looking at getting over Carlton next week, Bob.
Gary, stay with us. Join in the discussion because Robbo's about to look at the game yesterday, Hawthorn and Collingwood.
Yeah, well, I think that Hawthorn got off to a brilliant start. We mentioned about Dippy Domenico. He was just absolutely fantastic in the first quarter. Lawrence and Monkhurst had a great battle all day in the ruck, but I thought that perhaps it was players like Anderson and Pritchard, and I'd like to give Chris Whitman a bit of a rap because around the centre, his desire for the football was tremendous. He gave them some sort of impetus as well. Collingwood just seemed to struggle with their possessions. They did get the football, but they didn't seem to do anywhere near as much with it as Hawthorn. Hawthorn's precision with kicking and hand passing and giving it to a person obviously in a far better position was perfect yesterday. I guess that, well, the ground was in magnificent condition. We're getting close to springtime, and there's a lot of guys in that Hawthorn football team that just want to play in the final. So they've got a sniff of the action, and they certainly lifted a gear yesterday.
Is fishing a good start to a preconditioning, you think?
Fishing?
Yeah, for Chris Mew.
Well, look, time will tell. I guess
Does it show how much
Bob,
all that business is that they train for 6 months?
Well, it's refreshing, isn't it?
Yes.
It is refreshing,
That's
and
right.
I think sometimes they probably just do a little bit too much training. There's a lot of emphasis on players playing all through the season and playing the pressure at the end of the year. That will be where we will judge Chris Mew, I feel. When the finals start, he's doing it very, very nicely at the moment, and he's playing quite well. But the votes, I thought, without doubt, the best player on the ground was Dunstall. Look at players further up the field who deliver the ball to him, but his marking, and in particular his kicking, he kicked something like 11 goals too, was perfect for a full forward. Anderson was the player who I thought got Hawthorn moving, running, kicking, handballing, and Pritchard was a very, very good worker all through the day across the centre line.
Robbo, thanks for that. Ayresy, I believe it's Dermy's birthday today. He's 26.
Yeah, I believe so. Pardon me, yeah, I'd like to wish Dermy all the best on his birthday. I'm sure he would have celebrated last night.
Oh, I'm sure he did. Good luck for the finals. It looks for sure that Hawthorn will be there. Who knows, you might even get the double chance if you win your next 2 matches, and you're going to be mighty tough to beat.
Thanks very much, Bruce.
Good on you, Gary Ayres. As Ron Barassi said, Conan the Barbarian at one stage there, and the Rat, of course, John Platten. Well,